He made the goal 50, but will anyone really pay 50 million for Luis Suarez? Cavani, Neymar, Falcao, they've all been dealt, but will Zlatan be the one that reignites the transfer market? And is it really now or never for Gareth Bale? Joining me today are former Liverpool, Bayern Munich and Manchester City midfielder Didi Hamann, international football writer Peter Staunton, and goal correspondent Greg Stobart. I'm Nat Coombs and welcome to the Goal 50 Transfer Talk Special. So congratulations to Lionel Messi, the winner of this year's Goal 50. Well, that's a record third time. Working our way down the list, Greg, Gareth Bale at number 6. Real Madrid relentless in their pursuit of the Spurs man. Will they get him?
I think they might do, Nat. A few weeks ago, it looked almost certain that he'd stay at Tottenham for another year. But now he's told the club that he wants to leave. He wants to talk to Real Madrid. They're going to make a mind-blowing offer. I think it's going to be worth more than 90 million eventually. Tottenham insist there's been no official bid, and they say he's not for sale. But I don't see how they can turn down that kind of money.
Diddy, there's talk of his head being well and truly turned now. It's very hard for a club to hang on to a player when that's happened.
The one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he were to stay at Spurs, he's got 3 years left on his contract, so Spurs can say, whatever happens, you're going to stay with us. But you can't blame the player because he may not get the chance again. He's 24 now. A year in football is a long time, and you don't know whether he gets a chance again. So hopefully for the player, and I think for Real Madrid, I think it would be best to part ways and part companies because he's done ever so well for Spurs. Take the money, and they'll be able to bring some other players in. Good
for Bale, good for Real Madrid. What about Spurs? Should they sell high and re-up their squad with the money they get?
Well, for me, there's two ways of looking at it. One is that Gareth Bale is a prodigiously talented player. He's probably, he's among the best players in the world. And to lose him is going to damage any squad. But also Spurs are going to eventually have to figure out how to win games without Gareth Bale. Whether he's absent through injury or suspension or whether he departs on a permanent basis, he's not always going to be there to be relied upon. The very fact they could get 90 million for him and reinvest that, Daniel Levy does know how to buy players. Andre Villas-Boas is a very, very capable manager when he gets it right. And I do think that Spurs could almost, they could almost buy a stadium with that money, never mind buy 4 or 5 players.
Greg, there's talk of these amounts being thrown around, cash plus players. Do you think that in order for Real Madrid to get the deal done, it's going to have to be a straight cash deal?
I think Daniel Levy wants a cash deal if it's going to happen at all. It's a matter of principle for him, a matter of pride. He said all along that Bale wasn't leaving. He's very ambitious. He wants Tottenham to be a club that's in the Champions League every year, and you don't do that by selling your best player to Real Madrid every season either. So there's a possibility that they'll try and throw in Contral, but I think Daniel Levy's going to hold out for £90 million cash plus, and then we'll see if Real Madrid put the money on the table.
Do Spurs have a better chance of qualifying for the Champions League next season by selling Bale and bringing more players in, or by hanging on to him?
I wouldn't say they have a better chance, but they still got a chance because even last season they were in pole position with 2 months to go. They had 7 or 8 points in hand over Arsenal. They still didn't finish the job. If he does go, I think it spreads the responsibility. Defoe has got to do better, so is Adebayor, Lennon. They've got capable players. Paulinho coming in, so they've got players who can make a difference. If they were to get 90 million, if you bring 3 or 4 players in, which buys you top class for 20, 25 million, they could eventually, once they bring the players in, they could have a better chance than with Bale.
They only got close last year because of Gareth Bale's goals. For me, they're signing the likes of Soldado. It's well set up, perfectly set up for Tottenham next season with Soldado and Bale in the same team to really push for the top 4. Without him, I don't think they've got a chance.
And it's easier said than done in terms of reinvesting the money, Pete, because we're getting closer and closer to the window closing, and a lot of the top talent's off the table now.
Yeah, that's true. And also Spurs have, they've given their manager a little bit of a disadvantage in transfer windows gone by selling so late in the window. Sometimes managers are scrambling around on the last day of the transfer window trying to bring players in. I remember when Berbatov went to Man United on the last day, Spurs were kind of left a bit stuck for striking options. So if they are going to do business, it's a matter of pride, as Greg says, but if they are going to do business, it probably works better to do it early.
So Real Madrid's big rivals, Barcelona, have been very busy this summer as well. Neymar, the wonder kid, 14th on our list. It's quite possible he'll be battling for the top spot next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best players need to play for the best clubs. And Neymar's done all he can with Santos. He's won the Copa Libertadores. He's now broken into the Brazil team. He's almost up to 40 caps. And he's a huge part of the Confederations Cup success. And then the next step is to prove himself in Europe. He's gone into Barcelona. biggest club in the world, arguably. He's going to have Lionel Messi as a teammate, and it's all about proving himself now. And if he can do that, no doubt, there's no limits on what this kid can achieve.
57 million euros to get him, Greg, but Santos, his former club, didn't see too much of that, did they?
The word is Santos got as little as 9 million euros from the deal. Such was the interest in Neymar from third parties, from his father, made an absolute fortune from it. But Barcelona paid 57 million euros, and they'll think it's worth it because his marketing value in Brazil is absolutely huge.
Well, from Pep's old club to his current Bayern Munich, they didn't waste any time landing one of their top targets. Mario Götze secured before the end of last season, did he?
Yeah, fantastic signing for them. He's done ever so well for Dortmund. A bit of a surprise for everybody, but he had a clause in his contract that he can leave. I think it was 38 million euros. He's injured, he starts training now, and I think he'll be a fantastic player for already a star squad at Bayern Munich. They've done fantastic. So I think he could be the icing on the cake. Him and Thiago are two top players, and I think they'll make a big difference for them next season.
Pete, Dortmund have replaced him with Mkhitaryan, 43rd on our list. Do you think that's a like-for-like replacement?
It's not quite like for like, where I think Götze is more of an orchestrator and a creator. Mkhitaryan is more of a midfielder who gets on the ends of things and tries to push up right beside the striker, which for this season is going to be Robert Lewandowski. So once he recovers from injury, Mkhitaryan, I'd expect a lot of goals, but I would expect that Dortmund need to alter the way they play ever so slightly just to accommodate the attacking talents of Mkhitaryan and also Marco Reus, who's a phenomenal player in his own right.
Let's move on to a player who's 31st on the list. Everybody's been talking about him all summer long. Luis Suarez, very much a plan B for Real Madrid, isn't he, if the Bale deal doesn't go through?
Yeah, he's a plan B for Real Madrid, but he's a plan A for Arsenal. They've already made 2 bids for him, both rejected. The latest, more than £40 million. It's going to get quite ugly, I think, between Liverpool and Suarez because he's made it quite clear he wants to leave. He thinks he's got a clause in his contract that allows him to leave if an offer comes in more than £40 million. So very difficult situation for Liverpool. I think he'll end up at Arsenal somewhere in the middle between 40 and 50 million pounds.
Very difficult situation for Liverpool, isn't it, Diddy? Much like Spurs, really, do they sell high and cash in and bring other players in, or do they try and hang on to their prized asset?
Well, they said if a club comes and values the player as they do, they're willing to sell even to Arsenal. So I think there's every chance he'll go to Arsenal, but they need to up their bid because the player made it clear he wants to be there, he wants to go to Arsenal, he wants to leave Liverpool. It's a tricky situation. I think the worst case scenario would be if he stays at the club because he had here previous, he's got history. And if you've got a player in your ranks who doesn't want to be there, I think it can be very, very detrimental for the team spirit. And don't forget, 40 million is maybe on the low side of his valuation, but if he were to do anything as stupid as he did in the last 2 seasons, he could miss a big part of next season. So I think you have to figure that into the valuation of a player.
Well, on to another Uruguayan, Edison Cavani, moving to PSG for big money. It's placated the PSG fans who wanted to see a marquee signing, but it's ruffled a few feathers in the camp, hasn't it?
Yeah, supposedly Zlatan Ibrahimovic was not too thrilled about the arrival of Edison Cavani because it does mean that his place as the central striker in the team is perhaps under threat. PSG, while they weren't one-dimensional last season, they did rely on Zlatan Ibrahimovic quite a lot to get them out of trouble, get them the goals. But he does seem to have his own personal gravity in any team that everything needs to be played into and everything needs to spin around him. So Cavani, it could upset that a little bit, but they do have some formidable weapons there now with the likes of Lucas and obviously Zlatan, Cavani, Ezekiel Lavezzi and Javier Pastore. I mean, it really is an all-star attack and one that could do damage in the Champions League.
Diddy, let's look at one of your old clubs, Man City. They've been prolific spenders in the transfer window this summer. Do you think that they've overspent on certain players, or do you like what they've done?
I think they bought very well. Maybe they spent a little bit too much, but I think Fernandinho, Negredo, and also the other 2 players they brought in could make a huge difference to them. Fernandinho is a player who can score goals for midfield, brings him energy, and I think this is what they've been lacking. Navas and Jovetic are the other 2, and they didn't score enough goals last season. The reason they didn't win the league last year, or did contend, was they didn't score enough goals. They still had the best defensive record. Going forward, they were poor. They missed Aguero for large parts of the season, and sometimes when they play with Barry and Javi Garcia, I think they're a bit too predictable, especially when they play at home. And I think a player like Fernandinho's got that energy and that pace, that speed to go away from players could make a huge difference. So they addressed that. And I think all in all, they bought very well this summer.
I think the main thing for City is they've done their business early. Last year was an absolute fiasco when they're scrambling around for the likes of Maicon, Scott Sinclair and Javi Garcia right at the end. They're ready now, pre-season well underway. I think they're well set for the title next season. Fernandinho probably paid too much. I don't think he's even as good as Paulinho's gone to Tottenham for half the price, but they're looking well set, City.
So we're now in added time where, gents, I put some of our viewers' questions to you. I'll start with you, Greg, from Niall O'Connor via YouTube. He says, seeing as United seem as though they've missed out on Fàbregas, who are they targeting next?
Well, I wouldn't say it's impossible that Fàbregas couldn't end up at United now. It's looking very unlikely, though. Barcelona are insistent they'll keep him. Not been a good summer for Man United. They've already missed out on Thiago. They're desperate for a central midfielder. That's David Moyes' priority. Fellaini is an option. He's a player Moyes knows very well. I think that could well happen. But for me, someone like Luka Modric would be perfect for them, and they're having a good look at him.
Pete Hadimi on Facebook talks about Arsenal missing out on a number of their key targets so far in this transfer window. Will Bernard be next, he asks?
Yeah, in one word answer, it would be yes, that Bernard is going to go to Porto. Conveyor belt for introducing South American talent into Europe. It's a great first port of call. You know, this summer they've lost João Moutinho. They've also lost James Rodriguez, but they've replaced them with the likes of Juan Quintero. They brought in Diego Reyes and Hector Herrera from Mexico. And now the latest addition to that is Bernard. So it looks like Arsenal are going to have to look elsewhere.
Tom Hooley via Twitter wants your predictions for next season, Diddy. He thinks Man City for the title, Bayern Munich for the Champions League, and Arsenal for the Cup. What about you?
I agree with Man City. I think they've got the strongest squad. I think they've got a very shrewd manager in Pellegrini, so I go with him on Man City. Champions League, I think it's a tough act to follow, but still to this day nobody defended the Champions League trophy so far. I think it'll be very tough for Bayern Munich, even though they may have the best squad in Europe. I go for Real Madrid with Gareth Bale. FA Cup, I think Jose's got a fantastic record in the FA Cup. He won it a number of times when he was at Chelsea first time around. I don't think they're good enough to challenge for the league title, so I think they may as well have to settle for the FA Cup.
Okay, thanks. Well, that's it for today, I'm afraid. If you like what you saw, don't forget to press the subscribe button. To ask us a question, you can do so via Twitter, Facebook or YouTube. And if you want to find out more about the stories we talked about today, head on over to Goal.